Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. I am Rodrigo and next to me is Milena. Today we will comment and react to an extremely important and at the same time very delicate video called Adultization, available on YouTube. The content, which is supported by the United Nations, addresses the use of the internet by children and adolescents and presents serious allegations about the improper exposure of minors, which is a global problem. Before we begin, we want to emphasize that all the content we will discuss is from the original video, and we will give full credit during this video to the creator for raising such a necessary issue.
Exactly, Rodrigo. This video is a brave report on something that is happening right under our noses, as Felca himself says. It begins by warning that the topic is heavy, can be a trigger for many people, and recommends that those who do not feel comfortable can skip the content. Let's keep this respectful approach, but it is essential to discuss this. The video promises a funnel format. It starts light and deepens into serious allegations. So get ready because we will dive into this topic together. Remember, folks, that at the end of the video, we will leave the link to the channel where we are analyzing the news so you can subscribe.
Before starting, leave a comment. What is your opinion about children behaving like adults at an increasingly early age? Should children work in their youth or enjoy childhood more? Let's talk. Returning to the topic, the video begins with a UN survey analyzing how children and teenagers are using the internet in Brazil. And right away, Felca mentions something that really shocked me. He talks about predators on the internet who are watching content with children, sometimes even in inappropriate situations, such as in swimwear or without clothes. That already raises a red flag, right?
Certainly, Rodrigo. It's frightening to think that this happens on platforms we use every day. Felca makes it clear that the video is a report and he is willing to face the consequences of touching this hornet's nest. I think this shows how much he believes in the importance of exposing these issues. He says that the goal is to bring change, and I agree that this needs to be spoken about. But before we move on to the more serious cases, he explains the context. All of this is related to monetization on the internet.
Exactly. He says that we live in an era where it's very easy to make money online. He cites the example of Kwai, probably referring to platforms like TikTok or Kwai, where any viral video can earn a few cents, regardless of the content. And then comes the question he asks, is it better to humiliate yourself on the internet or take the crowded bus? It's a critique of the pressure for views and engagement, which leads to extreme behaviors.
And this pursuit of monetization, according to the video, crosses the line of acceptability when it involves children. He mentions the term tabacuda and criticizes video apps that allow content that is often inappropriate. What shocked me was when he said that parents, in search of money, put their underage children at the center of this content, adultizing or even sexualizing these children. This is a transition from something meant to be funny to something criminal, as he points out.
It's true, Milena. The video starts by talking about adultification in a lighter way, showing children acting like adults, such as these little entrepreneurs. It mentions an example of a child talking about productivity, saying that starting the day being productive is very important. I found it a bit surreal to hear a child speak like that, as if they were a 40-year-old executive.
That's right, Rodrigo. And he goes further, showing how these children who should be playing or studying are worried about adult things like balancing school with entrepreneurship. There's a phrase that struck me. School complicates the life of the entrepreneur. Socrates at 8 years old. It's an irony, isn't it? Comparing a child to Socrates because of this forced adult mentality.
And Felca makes a humorous but serious critique about the future. He says, our children will need a pediatrician and will be attended to by a cell phone case dropshipper. I laughed, but at the same time, it's concerning. He questions, what's happening with our children? And suggests that society is heading towards a collapse because of this. What do you think, Milena?
I think he's pointing out a real problem, Rodrigo. Children are being exposed to enormous pressure to perform like adults, whether due to parental influence or social media culture. And the video goes further, showing a discourse that blames the individual for their own failure even when they are a child. He cites an example of someone saying, "If you're in trouble today, it's your fault." That's heavy, especially when spoken to children or teenagers who are still forming their identity.
Yes, and there is a part where he mocks this mentality of those who want will find a way. He talks about someone who, even without a cell phone, should transmute an affiliate sales website or create paid traffic campaigns. It is a critique of this exaggerated entrepreneurial culture that ignores people's real limitations, especially children. And he even jokes about the idea of someone eating cardboard and being asked to find a way. It's a way to show how these discourses are absurd when applied to minors.
Exactly, Rodrigo. And there's a part that made me uncomfortable when he talks about a child who says he made 6,000 rays in one day operating dropshipping in the church. He calls this blasphemy, and I agree because it's a sacred environment being used for something so out of context. And Felca questions, "How come it's your turn, kid? You're 5 years old." It's a critique of the rush to turn children into productive adults.
That's right, and he continues with this irony, saying that a 5-year-old child should be worried about the little hat in Roblox, not online sales. But the tone changes when he starts addressing more serious cases, like Belle's, from the channel Belle for Girls. He explains that the channel, starring the mother and Belle, who was a child at the time, went beyond engagement limits, leading to a movement to protect the girl and even shut down the channel. Milena, what did you think of this part?
I was shocked, Rodrigo. He mentions a video from 2019 where Belle, still a child, appears in uncomfortable situations, such as saying, "Mom, I'm going to feel sick." Felca highlights that the pursuit of engagement led to exaggerated exposure, which generated a huge reaction, with child protection agencies getting involved and even lawsuits to take the mother's custody. It's heartbreaking to imagine the impact of this on a child's mind.
Yes, and he makes an important reflection. A child cannot distinguish between angry criticisms from haters and what they truly are. He says, people definitely do not know what trauma is. And Belle, in a statement, talks about how she saw her career and dreams crumble, facing criticism on TV and social media. This is very heavy for a child to process.
Certainly. And Felca points out that the problem begins when the mother turns on the camera for the first time, involving the child in adult issues such as justice, criticism, and cancellation. He says, "The child asks to eat dirt. The responsibility is of the guardian." I fully agree. It's not fair to blame the child for wanting to record videos, but parents need to set boundaries.
And then the video enters an even more serious case, that of Italo Santos and Camilleia. It describes how Italo created a reality show with teenagers at the height of puberty in an environment full of chaos and exposure. It ironizes, saying that it imagines Italo eating shit at 3 in the morning to have such an absurd idea. What do you think about this, Milena?
It's revolting, Rodrigo. He shows 14-year-old teenagers in an adult environment talking about hooking up and displaying behaviors encouraged by adults. Felca says this creates discomfort, and I felt it just by listening. He compares it to BBB, saying that if the show already melts the brains of adults, imagine what it does to children. And the worst part is that these young people were separated from their parents and placed in this macabre circus, as he calls it.
And the case of Camilleia is even more concerning. She entered this environment at the age of 12 and by 16 was already being filmed in situations like cuddling with another minor, with an adult pulling the blanket to show their scant clothing. Felca points out that the problem is not only the exposure, but also the audience that consumes this, including adult men with questionable intentions. It gave me a knot in my stomach.
I also felt that, Rodrigo. He says that Camilleia was conditioned to act this way over the years, since she was 12, and that Italo realized that the more she was shown, the more numbers she generated. He mentions shows with sensual dances, with her in a miniskirt. in environments with alcohol and drugs being watched by adult men. And her expression, according to Felca, showed exhaustion and discomfort. This is pure exploitation.
And there is the aesthetic procedure part at 17 years old, with Camilleia being filmed in the post-operative period, still sedated for the audience to applaud. Felca asks, where were these men looking? It is a critique of the sexualization of a minor encouraged by those who should protect her. He goes back to her 13 years old, showing that she was already posting suggestive content, and makes a reflection. What were you doing at 13? I was eating cookies and watching cartoons. This puts into perspective how these children are being deprived of a normal childhood.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that those responsible should limit this exposure. But in the case of Camilleia, it seems there was no responsible adult, only exploitative adults. And the video doesn't end there. He discusses the case of Caroline Dreer, which is even more shocking. It starts with her at 11 years old doing innocent dances, but they escalate to criminal content administered by her own mother.
This case is stomach-turning, Milena. Felca says that Caroline's mother received comments from adult men asking for more exposure, and instead of protecting her daughter, she fulfilled these requests. At 14, the mother created a VIP group on Telegram to sell explicit content of her daughter, including videos of her bathing and exposing her body. He says, thinking about how this content was produced makes me want to vomit. And I agree, it's impossible not to feel revulsion.
It's horrible, Rodrigo. Felca points out that this attracted a community of pedophiles, and the content leaked to forums and groups on Telegram. He makes an emotional plea to Caroline, saying that she is not to blame for being born into a dysfunctional family, and wishes that the criminals pay. He also explains the impact of abuse. It's not just trauma, but something that shapes a person's identity forever, potentially leading to mental disorders, low self-esteem, and even contemplating giving up on life.
And he quotes Judith Ehrman saying that trauma is not only what happens to the child, but also what they need to face alone afterward. When abuse comes from someone in the family, as in Caroline's case, Felca explains that it destroys trust and faith in the world. He says, when the one who should protect you becomes the predator, you not only lose your childhood, you lose faith in the world. This is very powerful.
Yes, and he goes further, explaining how pedophiles operate on social networks, using codes like trade to exchange child pornographic content. He shows how the platform's algorithm, especially for vertical videos, recommends this type of content based on likes and viewing time without considering ethics. He calls this the P algorithm and demonstrates by creating an account from scratch how easy it is to condition the algorithm to deliver videos of exposed children.
This part is scary, Milena. It shows that in just a few minutes, by liking suggestive videos, the algorithm begins to recommend more content of the same type, with comments full of Telegram GIFs and links to private groups. It warns parents to check if there are comments with trade or exchange on their children's videos, because that indicates they are targeted by predators. And the worst, it says that Brazil is one of the largest producers of this type of content.
And he attributes this to social inequality and lack of punishment. The parents, driven by greed, monetize their children's exposure, and social media allows this. He criticizes it's a robot, but the robot is made by human beings. In the era of artificial intelligence, he finds it unacceptable that there are no mechanisms to detect and ban this content. And he makes an appeal. This change has to happen yesterday.
He also addresses the paradox of reporting these cases, called the copycat effect, where exposing the problem can, unintentionally, give tools to criminals. Therefore, he blurs names and profiles to raise awareness without making access to this content easier. And in the end, he brings in a psychologist to discuss the impact of exposure on children, emphasizing that they lack the discernment to handle this and that parents need to supervise.
The psychologist explains that children exposed to adult content lose the distinction between public and private, which affects the formation of identity. She recommends no internet before the age of 2, at most 1 hour per day until age 5, and 2 hours after that, always with supervision. And regarding abuse, she says that when it comes from a family member, the child becomes confused because the abuser can also be someone who does positive things, making it difficult to recognize the abuse.
And she emphasizes that it is never too late to seek therapy, even years after the abuse. For those who feel guilt or shame, she says, "The guilt is not yours, I am here with you." It is a powerful message. Felca concludes by saying that he reported all the cases shown and that the monetization of the video will be donated to institutions that help children victims of abuse. He also mentions investigations against Italo Santos and the removal of Camilleia's social media accounts by the public prosecutor's office.
And about Caroline, he updates that she now lives with her grandmother, and the case is under investigation. It is a relief to know there is movement, but, as he says, the mental damage is immeasurable. He also shares a personal experience, saying that he was accused of supporting this type of content, but clarifies that he followed the profiles to map the problem. He sued those who defamed him and will donate the money to charity.
This video is a warning, Milena. It makes us reflect on the responsibility of parents, platforms, and society. As Felca says, protect your children. It's a call to action. We recommend watching the original video on YouTube called Adultization and reporting any suspicious content. Let's continue discussing these topics to create a safer environment for children.
Certainly, Rodrigo. This video doesn't end now. It continues with us chatting in the comments. If you found this video interesting, I invite you to become a channel member and like this video. Up here on the top right, I will leave a video suggestion for you to continue with me.
Exactly. As always, thank you very much for watching. I am Rodrigo, she is Milena, and we'll see you next time with more news.